every president since Jimmy Carter who's alive would or has endorsed Kamala Harris, except Donald Trump. And it's because Donald Trump's running against her. So that means that all the people, like going back to Carter, all the presidents who are responsible for the way things are circling the wagons for Kamala, as well as someone who really was president for about at least 6 of the 8 years of the George W. Bush administration, who is one of the most demonic figures to have served in U.S. government in my lifetime, who really shaped the post 9/11 atmosphere by locking down America under the Patriot Act and this security state and spreading violence, unprecedented violence to the Middle East, which has unleashed wave after wave of instability in the form of ISIS after some 100 million Iraqis were killed. And we're still living it with it today. That's Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris after his daughter, Liz Cheney, who the Democrats made a hero because they needed a Republican to serve their interests on the January 6th commission. Liz Cheney endorsed Kamala, and then Dick Cheney's endorsement followed. And now he's enjoying this renaissance. I always was predicting, like when everyone was like, welcome to the resistance, David Frum during the first Trump term, welcome to the resistance, Bill Kristol, yeah, woke Bill Kristol, that Dick Cheney would eventually join the resistance, and he has. And here is how Kamala Harris reacted to his endorsement. I think this is her on the phone with Dick Cheney.
Actually, I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that what they both, as leaders who are well respected, are making an important statement that it's okay, and if not important, to put country above party. And I'm honored to have their support, and I think it's an important statement right now. A lot of what I think is happening, and I was just talking with some folks here in Pittsburgh about it, is that people are exhausted about the division and the attempts to kind of divide us as Americans. And them stepping up to make this public statement, I think, is courageous, but also for people like the folks I was just talking with, it really reinforces for them that we love our country and we have more in common than what separates us.
Amazing. I mean, the division. We're tired of the division. We need to stop fighting Dick Cheney and come together.
Yeah, well, even some progressive media influencers have done that, fallen in line. Well, or they have this weird narrative, like Emma Vigeland or whatever her name is, and Kyle Kalinske. First of all, attacking Republicans for defending Dick Cheney for years, as if that's relevant when it's 2024 and now he's in your tent. Or Emma saying that this is Dick Cheney's rebranding campaign. Like, he didn't retract a single one of his views. He didn't have a come to Jesus moment. How can it be a rebranding campaign without an actual rebrand? It's the Democratic Party that has rebranded in my lifetime, from being the party that marched with me in the streets against the Iraq War in 2003 to the party of Barack Obama drone kill list baseball card player and expansion of dirty secret warfare around the world, and Hillary Clinton. We saw he died cackling witch. That's the Democratic Party. So I think maybe it's the party, the cult, that has changed, not Dick Cheney. The fact that he can find a home in that party under Kamala says more about the party than it does Dick Cheney. Yeah. And I just, watching that clip of Harris, I mean, as we mentioned earlier, I'm not confident that Trump is even the Trump of 2016. Like, I don't think it's going to be this rah-rah big shakeup that I maybe had hoped for in 2016. But when you see a clip like that, that alone, if there was nothing else, would just really make me want to vote for Trump. Like, it actually makes me want to vote for Trump when I see Kamala Harris saying that about the Cheneys, because it's such a betrayal to what I used to believe the spirit of the Democratic Party was. And the fact that they're bringing in this demon is very scary. And so it's Someone needs to write a book about how that's what the Democratic Party became.
Well, it definitely doesn't make me want to vote for Trump, who's going to have Mike Pompeo.
Well, that's true. I know. I agree. But that clip, I'm just saying, when you see that clip and you see them defending Dick Cheney, it's like,
no, it's outrageous. It's just a complete red line. It's a complete red flag. It shows that the Democratic Party is a completely Machiavellian party that has no principles at all. If you're like my age and you remember how the Democrats talked about Dick Cheney when he was vice president, and all the books that appeared, and, the columns that are written at The Nation where Joan Walsh, the pathetic Hillary Clintonite Joan Walsh, is welcoming Dick Cheney's endorsement. They were calling the Bush era, the fascist. It was like fascist second coming of Nazi Germany, and Upton Sinclair was right. Fascism will come wrapped in an American flag, and the Christian fascists are ruling us. And, Dick Cheney is the epitome of evil. Now you have, it's not just Joan Walsh. That doesn't surprise me at all. But you have this coalition now of AOC and Dick Cheney supporting Kamala Harris. And here's Bernie Sanders.
Senator, before I do have to ask you about her recent endorsements by two people who are not progressives at all. Of course, I'm talking about Dick and Liz Cheney. This week, they said they're going to support her. They're going to vote for her. It's worth noting, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney voted with former President Trump more than 90% of the time, was quite critical when President Biden picked her as his running mate. Would you welcome seeing Liz Cheney out on the campaign trail?
Well, Kristen, what I think Dick and Liz Cheney are saying is that in this existential moment in American history, it's not just issues. Cheney and I agree on nothing, no issues. But what we do believe in is that the United States should retain its democratic foundations. And it's not just Cheney. I think there is a significant number of Republicans who say, well, I may not agree with the vice president on this issue or that issue, but I cannot support somebody who's a pathological liar, somebody who fomented a insurrection to overthrow the election return. So I applaud Cheney's.
Remember when Dick Cheney and George Bush stole an election?
They straight up stole the 2000 election. They stopped the vote recount. It was the most obvious theft of an election ever. We'll probably get this live stream taken down for saying what Maxine Waters, Jesse Jackson, and all the Democrats who felt disenfranchised in 2000 said openly. It was a completely invalid election, and Bush was appointed by the Supreme Court. And then they proceeded
after having interference from his brother's Supreme Court in Florida.
Yeah, and his brother and Catherine Harris, who was appointed by his brother as Secretary of State, stopped the vote recount to prevent pathetic Al Gore from winning. And then Al Gore just stepped aside because Al Gore is part of this whole betrayal and said, we're not going to do any protests. We're just going to let Bush be president. Just like Bernie. And Bernie's saying, how many times is Bernie going to betray his movement? He's saying that he will not support, he'll say he won't support a liar. Is Dick Cheney not a liar? Dick Cheney's someone who ushered in a secret torture program and kept it from Congress. He openly lied. He lied to Congress. It's an impeachable offense. It's a criminal offense. Dick Cheney.
So many Americans died because of those lies. Because it's not just like a lie, like a white lie that all politicians tell. It's like the Bush administration lied and millions of people died. So I don't even know why Bernie Sanders bothers anymore. If I were him, I would just shut up and enjoy my retirement or my small little place in the Democratic Party. Why does he have to continuously embarrass himself and insult his former supporters like that?
This is just memories of Dick Cheney.
No apologies, no regrets from former Vice President Dick Cheney for the harsh CIA interrogation techniques used on terror detainees after 9/11. what the Senate Intelligence Committee labeled torture in its blistering report this past week. The former VP today called necessary as he delivered a powerful counterattack this morning on NBC's Meet the Press.
Powerful.
Mr. Cheney took strong exception to that Senate report and, contrary to its conclusions, told our Chuck Todd that the interrogation techniques absolutely worked. NBC's Kristen Welker is at the White House tonight with more on this. Kristen, good evening.
Lester, good evening. Facing heavy criticism after the Senate intelligence report was released this past week, former Vice President Dick Cheney was unapologetic today and said the Bush administration got it right. Former Vice President Dick Cheney, unwavering in his support for the harsh interrogation tactics that happened on his watch, today ratcheted up his defense on Meet the Press.
I'd do it again in a minute.
Cheney argued the methods, including prolonged periods of waterboarding, were necessary in the wake of the September 11th attacks and insisted the procedures were not torture.
Torture was what the al-Qaeda terrorists did to 3,000 Americans on 9/11. There's no comparison between that and what we did with respect to enhanced interrogation.
A fired-up Cheney called the report politically motivated, and that was his more tempered language.
I won't use the word on your show. It may be family. It's a crock. It's not true.
And he disputed the report's claim that the interrogation tactics provided no credible information.
Absolutely
All of
not.
this information in here, no seed of doubt that whether this worked or not.
It worked. It absolutely did work.
Yeah, it worked. It worked in gathering false intelligence that he used to justify invading Iraq through the torture of al-Libi or the fake turncoat, the fake informant curveball. I mean, Dick Cheney lied and lied and lied when Ambassador Joe Wilson went to Niger to investigate whether they had sold yellow cake to Saddam Hussein's intelligence services to produce enriched uranium so that he could start a weapons of mass destruction and nuclear program, and determined in the New York and wrote in the New York Times that there was no such thing ever happened. Dick Cheney authorized the unmasking of Joe Wilson's wife, Valerie Plame, as a confidential CIA operative.
Yep.
Dick Cheney, when he was in the Bush administration, presided over the awarding of a $7.5 billion no-bid contract to Halliburton, the company that he resigned, where he resigned as CEO the day before he became the nominee of the vice president, the vice presidential nominee. And guess who ran the vice presidential selection committee for George W. Bush? It was Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney vetted all the other candidates. He said, none of them are going to work, so I select myself. And then he authorized this war in which he got $7.5 billion for the over $1 million of shares he got from Halliburton for after he retired. And he still has those shares. So he's looking for more contracts. This guy is one of the most evil figures who've served in the U.S. government, along with the whole George W. Bush administration. They destroyed large sections of the globe. They set us on the path that we're on. They left thousands and thousands of Americans maimed. They destroyed so many lives. And it's just such an insult. And it's so upsetting to me that it's Dick Cheney who's walking free and having a renaissance right now and having his endorsement welcomed by the Democratic nominee when Donald Trump is the felon because he supposedly cooked the books on payoffs to a like a mid-level porn star. Like that's justice in this country. Is there any accountability here? Does anything matter to you, Bernie? Should anyone pay the price for these corporate crimes and these war crimes? According to Bernie, no. All that matters is winning. They're all just Machiavellian figures with no principles at all, which is why I can never support that party.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say is Dick Cheney's revival and the fact that he's been welcomed into liberal media and the Democratic Party, along with all of the never Trumpers last time, is really a reminder of the absurdity of the fact that Donald Trump is the first U.S. president to ever face a criminal indictment. And for all the liberals that freaked out about the Supreme Court ruling on immunity, which I would let a legal expert discuss that. And I've talked to some who say that, yes, what liberals are saying, that it never gives you that it's going to prevent anybody from prosecuting a president in the future, is not true. Well, it's also like you guys never did it. You had the chance, and then you were like, we tortured some folks. So does anyone believe that if a president commits crimes, or if Dick Cheney, if they weren't held accountable, then obviously no one ever would be, except for something stupid like what they're trying to do by going after Donald Trump. And it makes us feel like our government, our entire system has actually been hijacked by a political one political party. One
Yep.
political party that's focused on Russia and not Israel. One political party that's focused on just Donald Trump as the singular evil, when in my lifetime, he's definitely the president that did the least amount of damage, regardless. You know, he made mistakes, horrible mistakes with Venezuela, with Soleimani. But if you're really going to say that, like, he's the one that we need to take out, and it's not like they even went after him for those mistakes. They went after him for really dumb things. Like, it couldn't be more clear. I've never seen U.S. politics look like more of a joke.
What did Trump do that was remotely as bad as what George W. Bush did? Like, and they're telling us this is the most important election of our lifetime, and that we're living in, we're going to be living in Nazi Germany when Donald Trump is elected. I mean, we've been through that. What was the Patriot Act? No-knock searches. All of our rights were just completely trashed under George W. Bush. And it's like it never happened. We're living in, this is amnesia country.
No, we're supposed to believe that Donald Trump was the worst period of time. Like, his presidency was the most insane, when really the most insane aspect of it was just the media and the meltdown and the fear mongering and the push toward Cold War, hot war, right? Aaron, where is Aaron?
No, yeah. Well, as Frank Zappa said, the media is the entertainment wing of the military industry. And I would say, they're the entertainment wing of the criminal corporate war cartel that has captured the government